Again, thank you for hearing our testimony. I'm Sarah Watson. I'm a family doctor in Rhode Island. This is Anna Ford, my partner. She's a trauma nurse at Rhode Island Hospital, and this is our son, Eli. This bill is meant to fill in the gaps and secure the rights of anyone who's the obvious parent but not the biological one. If you're sitting there thinking that I'm preaching to the choir, please encourage your fellow senators to bring this bill to the floor for a vote. This is not a back burner issue. This is codifying equal treatment for all families and kids in Rhode Island. It took us 2.5 years to become pregnant through IVF. We signed more consent forms than I could count. Our doctors wouldn't do any procedures without the written consent of both my partner and I, meaning our embryos were our joint responsibility. Unfortunately, the consent forms that we signed only protected my right to the embryos that my partner and I had created, not any resulting child. When Eli was born, I had no presumed parental rights, not one. I was not his birth parent, and I was not able to put my name on his birth certificate before we left the hospital, which I know sounds like a formality, but it's not. A birth certificate is the first and sometimes only legal link that a parent has with his or her child. It's a very, very big deal. Of course, I have the option to adopt Eli, but Rhode Island law dictates that I must wait 6 months before this can happen, and I was not able to secure a court date until Eli was 8 months old. Until that time, I was legally an invisible entity, even though I had an equal part in conceiving and caring for him. In fact, the anonymous sperm donor was the person with the parental rights, which is why during the adoption process, we were required to place an ad in a Massachusetts newspaper notifying this anonymous man that our son was about to be adopted. We've had people ask us why we didn't get married. The simple answer is that we didn't know we would be forced to get married to be listed as parents. And when we found out 4 days after our son was born, it just didn't make sense. Being married is not a litmus test for who will turn out to be a good parent, nor does it guarantee the longevity of a parental relationship. No one insists that opposite-gendered couples be married in order to secure their relationship to their kids. So why would we try to bend our family to fit an antiquated law when it's the law that needs to change? Almost everyone can probably think of a friend or relative who's had to use the genetic material of other people, donor eggs or sperm, to achieve a successful pregnancy. What's remarkable is that there are literally no Rhode Island laws that address who has the right to parent the kids resulting from these medical advances. Opposite-gendered couples can continue to use a form called the Voluntary Affidavit of Paternity, which has a space for mother and father and allows them to attest to hospital personnel that they are the parents of a newborn. They do not have to provide a biological link to their baby. In fact, they may be completely biologically unrelated to their infant because of IVF, but one would never tell a man whose son was born through donor sperm that he is not the parent of his kid. Although it's clear that establishing parentage is not predicated on having a genetic connection, same-gendered couples have no form to fill out in the hospital. We have to wait at least 6 months for the non-birth parent in our relationships to establish a legal link to our kids. I am proud to say that Rhode Island is one of only 5 states that mandates insurance coverage for IVF. However, if my partner and I conceive and deliver a child through this mandated IVF coverage, custody of our son remains in legal limbo until we can obtain a court hearing to adopt him. And until that time, an anonymous man has more legal claim to our son than I do. How is that just? Listen to our stories. If they sound scary to you, you can imagine how we feel. All we want is to be able to protect our little ones. Their lives were no accident. They're some of the most loved and wanted children out there. Don't let this bill languish in committee. You need to protect our kids too. Thank you for your time.